Hello, beautiful. Let's see. Okay. Hi. Okay. So I want to ask you a few things because I went over a few different topics um, based on kind of what my clients have been going through, what some of them have asked for, and I wanted to check in with you and kind of see where you're at with them. So the first thing that I want to say is that hmm, the alignment process, which I've done with you guys in the membership before, but the alignment process, when we go through and we go through the full alignment, like how worthy, how deserving, how much is it going to happen, how likely, all the things, it's super important because you have to check in with yourself every time you hit a new goal, like you create a new goal, or if you're not getting what you want. And so I don't know that I've articulated it before in that way. I feel like I've communicated it, but I don't know if I have articulated it in that way. So again, if you have a new goal and you have not, achieved it consistently, it's really good to always check back in with the alignment work because it gives you a foundation of the things that you should work on at this new level. Because everything that you've cleared up until this point was at a different level. And the thing is that I don't know that unless we're a Buddhist monk, I don't know that our stuff ever goes away 100%. I feel like having a human experience on some level, we will still experience some sort of facet of an old story, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've done this where I'm like, man, I thought I cleared that. But because I was at a different level, because I was working with a different goal, because I was in someplace different, it showed up just a little bit different. So that's the first thing I want to ask is that if you feel like you need support with checking in with that, that's one of the big things that I've been working into with my clients and then people that what people have been telling me they need is the support of making sure they're on track, tracking their alignment every time they kind of level up. So let me know what that sounds like for you. The other thing is going to be there's three topics that I've already written out because I was feeling so inspired. I was like, I want to talk about this and I want to talk about this. And I always kind of go on what is inspiring me. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll tell you the other two and you can let me know. The other one is going to be focusing on what you desire versus focusing on what's not going right. And I know that when I say that, the very first thing that usually happens with people is that they're like, oh no, I'm totally focused on what I want. But a good way to know that that's not always true is that if anything goes wrong, you kind of spiral out, right? And I've been going through a really big shift with this lately. And so a lot of my clients of like really making the shift to focus on that it is working and that we're doing everything right. That will change everything. That's so powerful that if you did the alignment process and then you did that for a week, it would shift everything in your business. So let me know between those two. There's another third one, but I think let's do it. Okay. So you think um, focusing on the desire versus, the want or what's going wrong is better to focus on than stepping in with the alignment work, right? Am I understanding that properly? Da, 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 da. And since it's just you here, you're more than welcome to come off. Like I redone the membership where you can, I'll include coaching at the end, but since it's just you, that's fine. If you want to come off, you don't have to, but you can. You don't have to, like, don't feel obligated. Hi
Oh,
again.
no. I love it. I just want to be
Oh.
respectful to your class.
Oh, well, thank you. No worries at all. Like I really have sat with it and I was like, I want to, if I'm going to be here live, I'd rather have a live component because I feel like a lot of this magic comes from live coaching and like people even witnessing live coaching of like, oh yeah, like I have that, or oh yeah, that's a different perspective. And so for me, it's totally fine. Especially
Okay.
since I'm moving more to like digital programs instead of being
Right.
on calls. This is going to be like the main way that people can find me. Sorry, my hair is looking really crazy. I like just got out of a yoga class and my hair has been like really all over the place. Yeah. So what do you think about those? There is a third topic, but I might wait for
Right.
next week.
Well, they both sound
Or,
really good. They
okay,
both sound really
or
good.
if there's
What's
been
that?
something, sorry, there might be a little bit of
Oh,
a delay. Sorry,
oh, okay.
let me check something. Yeah, let me hold on one second.
Sure.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Or you could, if there's anything that's been coming up, right? That's the other thing. And you can
Right.
always let me know ahead of time. So you just let me know
Sure.
because you are here live. And so that means that I'm going to
Sure.
cater to that.
Okay. Well, both with number 1 and 2 sound really good to me. And number 2 sounded even better, but no,
I had
both
a
are great.
feeling. I had a feeling. I was like, I feel this one. Not because of you specifically. It's just I'm very intuitive. And so a lot of times when I feel
Sure.
into things, I'm like, ooh, this is probably it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. And
And
is there something that's been coming up for you?
yes, unfortunately. Oh,
Do you
Farron,
want
that's
to
so
talk about it?
sad.
Oh no. Oh no, no, no. That's
Well,
okay. We're gonna shift it. Don't worry. I
okay.
mean, unless something really bad happened, and then I'm like,
No,
don't. I
no,
mean,
no,
we're not
no,
gonna skate over it, Like,
no, no. I obviously, on the one hand, have a high capacity for doing all the work I love, but clearly I have a pattern of taking on too much, and it doesn't feel like too much until 3 months later, and all of a sudden it's too much. And I've got I feel like just this last 2 weeks, I'm feeling more exhausted than ever. I'm feeling my heart rate more. I feel the tension in my chest, kind of like where I was last December. And here I am again. So then I wondered, do I have this belief that this has to be hard? Even though at the time I plow through just fine. Like I really have a high capacity. But you know what? I'm going through menopause now, and my body does not have that capacity. Not like it used to,
right,
you
right,
know?
yeah.
So,
Yeah. And that's very interesting. I've actually had this conversation with other private clients of mine with this menopause thing, because
mhm,
obviously, like, my situation isn't menopause, but it is hormonal. And so I understand, like,
sure.
um, that concept of like when your hormones are off balance or out of whack or just not the way they were, you're used to, your capacity does change. And
Hmm.
so I think it gets to be both. I think it gets to be the very physical aspect of things. And then there's also, I think, this other layer.
Hmm.
We'll see. We'll dive into it. We'll see. But like
Hmm.
this other layer of this has to be hard, or I have to
Hmm.
say yes.
Right. I do have that. And but to be honest, it's not an obligation, at least that I'm aware of, because I do have very good boundaries and I have no problem saying no to people. I already did this morning with
Mhm.
someone. Um, but I think I like to feel needed.
Good
I
to
get a lot of purpose.
notice.
Like I'm working in a
Yeah.
nonprofit, and then the more work I do, the more passionate I am. And oh, what's another meeting? Like I feel good today. What's another meeting? But I always feel good at the time, but then 3 months later, it's my body. I feel like I might be on the verge of anxiety, and the exhaustion. And I'm like, I know enough. Like, wow, this is bad. Like I take it seriously
Right.
because I'm not. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, if you want as well, I think I don't know how open to this you are, but I have other clients that, like I said, are going through this, and I referred them to like a nutritional therapist to help get them the supplements they need.
Right.
Because
Right.
I think I've told you about Dr. Sarah Godfrey, but she's Ivy League trained on the Huberman podcast. I love her because she's very scientific, but she's
Hmm.
also integrative. So like she's into natural stuff and taking supplements before taking something like hormone replacement therapy. And listen,
Hmm.
your journey is your journey. That's not the point here. Or at the very least, just
Sure.
reading the book. I don't know if
Yeah.
you still have access to the Coaches Toolkit. I can resend it to you because I've updated it.
Yeah.
But that information is in there. And then if you want to have
Okay.
testing done, I can refer you to somebody. But
Sure.
I think the test is like with a consult. So they do like a consult and they write out like your specific
Mm.
plan for you. And
Right.
I think it's like $300. And I mean, you still
Okay.
have to pay for supplements on top of that, but just for full
Yeah.
transparency, for me, that's a no brainer price point for me feeling better. But I also realize that not
Hmm.
everybody is in the same situation. And I think there is a very I'm mindful of how I want to articulate this because I feel like I've been talking about this a lot with my mentor. You guys have heard my journey with having PMDD, which is hormonal stuff,
Hmm.
but really
Hmm.
it's all rooted back to copper toxicity, which caused gut issues, which caused me not to absorb my
Mm.
nutrients, which caused me to have
Right.
out of balance hormones, which created this thing that they said was ulcerative colitis, which I actually don't ever think happened. I think it was presenting that way, but I think it was just because I wasn't
Mm,
absorbing nutrients. And since I started these supplements, I haven't had any sort of flare with. I still have some hormonal stuff that I'm still working on because it's a supplement that's for everybody. It's not a one size fits all. So it's kind of like being in the membership versus working with me one to one. It takes longer to get to the results that you have when you're kind of doing like it the kind of long way. But I am working with a nutritional therapist starting when I go back to the States because we couldn't get everything I needed here in the Dominican. And I'll be in the States
right.
at the
Right.
beginning of July. But anyways, but I've been talking to my mentor about this, my Kundalini mentor, because I know
Hmm.
not logically, but I know like my truth is that we can heal ourselves. And I've
Yes. Yes.
experienced it, but
Yeah.
it takes a lot of discipline to be energetically aligned. And I'm gonna give you an example of what I mean. This is gonna blow your mind. So
Right.
with this autoimmune thing, I haven't had any. So the autoimmune was ulcerative colitis, so obviously it was gut stuff. I haven't
Hmm.
had any gut problems in months and months and months. But one thing that would always happen is my lips would swell and become like chapped.
Hmm.
And that's still happening. And actually, it's happening more. And I think it's a
Hmm.
histamine response on the very 3D level. So when I say 3D, I mean in this reality. Then you
Yeah.
hear people talk about like the 5D, which was who cares what we call it? Like it doesn't really matter, but this kind of
Yeah.
ascension of I can heal myself and I can out energetically grow out of that. But hmm, the requirements that it can require, for lack of a better term. Like I get up and I meditate every day with my mentor and do
Yeah.
Kundalini activation Monday through Friday. And I
Hmm.
still have this thing, but we've literally seen them go down in session.
Wow.
How
Yeah, I love
wild is
that.
that? And so like
Yeah.
logically my very scientific brain is like, that's bullshit. But I'm experiencing it.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
for
I
me,
believe it. Yeah.
it's crazy. And for me,
Yeah.
like what I've pinned it to, I don't know exactly. And I don't even know if it matters what the scientific reason is.
Mm.
I think we can
Hmm.
get to a point where we heal ourselves, but some people don't have the capacity or the finances or whatever the story is, and they want to do it. It doesn't, I don't know if it matters which way you heal. If it's with,
Yeah.
a nutritional therapist or if it's with hormone replacement therapy and not healing, but you know what I mean, coming back into balance, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is when I'm feeling really anxious or overwhelmed, they swell. It's almost like my little,
Right.
hey, you're not in alignment thing. And
Yes.
it's blown us both away. We've been like, whoa, this is why. I mean, he knows he's from India, but like seeing it in real time, like I went back and
Hmm.
watched replays. Like it's wild. Like it's wild. And so all that to say that I think it gets to be both and you get to decide what works best for you. And
Yeah.
also honor that you're a human and that you're going through a human experience and you might not have the
Yes.
same capacity anymore.
Right. Right. I have no
That's okay
estrogen.
too. Oh, and estrogen is what makes us feel like we're not goddess, like we want
I
to talk to
know.
everybody and like we have all this, energy and whatever. And then all of a
Uh,
sudden, like that's what happens to me. Like my estrogen progesterone just go so like this that I don't
hmm.
always feel like myself, right? And so
Right.
I know what that feels like. It's like just feeling
Yeah.
low and not like yourself and brain foggy and weird and all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
that's encouraging.
I think that's like just to again that duality of striving to feel better and
Yes.
also being like it's okay that I feel this way. But one thing I
Yes.
wanted to mention about Sarah Godfrey, which I think I've probably told you, was that
Yeah.
I love that she said we've been taught that menopause should be this bad thing, that it's horrible and
Mm.
women really struggle with it. And she's
Hmm.
like, it's not true. It doesn't have to be like
Right.
that. It can
Doesn't
be
have
really
to be.
smooth as butter if
Yeah.
you make sure that you're taking the right supplements at the right
Yes.
time.
Yeah. I believe that for sure.
It's the
Yeah.
same with PMS. She was like, like people get
Yes.
a lot of pushback that PMS, like, especially male
Hmm.
doctors, oh, PMS isn't a thing. And they didn't mean it like, oh, it's not a thing. It's, hey, it's not normal, not because you shouldn't PMS, but because if you're PMSing that bad, something's out of like nutritional balance and we can fix that.
Yes.
And so I think menopause
Yes.
is the same of like you can do
I
things
agree.
and even supplements that aren't that expensive to help mitigate
Yes. Yes. And I am on that. And I even
that.
take like a natural progesterone cream and
Oh,
all of that
good.
too.
Okay.
And I read a
Amazing.
life-changing book about circadian rhythm 2 months ago. And of course,
Really
I only
helpful.
stuck in my rhythm for about 5 weeks and then went back to old habits, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Everything takes time. So I have bought like a program for reducing cortisol, bought that yesterday.
Amazing, because that's a big one.
And
But
yeah,
read her
and
book. She talks a lot about cortisol in the
yeah,
book.
I'll look it up. Yeah,
Amazing.
sounds
Okay.
great.
So now the other side of this, because here's the very 5D woo-woo esoteric side of this, is I personally believe that when we create these things, whether it's my like, and I know it's a weird thing to say, like, oh, I created menopause, and that's not what I'm saying, but the
No,
experience that we have with menopause, because the truth is that this is
sure.
still a lesson. And even if it
Yes,
wasn't menopause, it might be something else that pops up to teach it to you. And so
yes.
the question becomes, what part of me gets something positive
I know, I
from
know. I knew you were going to
committing,
say this because you've
right?
taught me well, and I've been asking
Right.
myself that. And I really don't know. I'm not sure. It made me wonder, do I have a belief that this has to be hard? So I take on too much so it becomes hard, even though at the time it doesn't feel hard. I actually feel like I don't know, but I realize that I've had a hand in this because
Yeah.
I don't really
Well,
take, sorry, I was just gonna say, I don't really
no,
take all my evenings off and my weekends because sort of what built up was, I'll make it quick.
that's okay. You're fine.
Okay. Well, obviously I started the Reels program and the business coach, and that went so well. So then I signed up with the business coach for 2 more months, but that involved a lot of homework, working on the ads, working on creating a free class webinar. And I had that sense of urgency because I only get her for 1 month at a time. So I want to be efficient. I'm the doer and I try to get it all in before the month is up because I want to get good value. And so it felt fine at the time, though I did know I'm doing a lot. I'm not really giving myself time off. Um, and that's not good. And that becomes normal and I get used to it. My kids are older now and I finally have this time where I actually can do whatever I want, work on weekends and evenings. And I really tried to stop working after dinner after reading the circadian rhythm book. So that was good. But now it's caught up. Like I feel the stress in my body. So
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I want to say about this is that just because like, oh, I there's something here, doesn't mean that we always can get to it on our like. This is why being in
right,
a container like this, because I can hold the
right.
space and like pick it out of you, because I'll know. I'll be like, okay, there's something here, right? So that's
Yeah.
okay. Like it's a
Yeah.
progress, right? Or a
Yeah.
process. Okay. So hold on, I'm just looking at something very quick. Okay. So the part of you I think that really speaks out is this part that's like, hmm, there's a few ways that I can articulate it, and I'm trying to be mindful about what I say because I don't want to project into your experience, but I'm just trying to like reflect back what I see. Is this version of you that's like, and you said the words earlier, and I was like, there's something there. It was like you
Mhm.
you had said something around, I have to like get this done. I have to get the value, right? So I find that really interesting. When people always use the term value, it's very interesting when they're in a money container because obviously there's something there around that. And listen, I get it. Like, right? If you're like, I have something for 30 days, I'm gonna get the most out of it.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
but I also want to
But
reflect back to at what cost.
right. At what cost? Exactly.
And I think what's really important here is because we've talked so much about capacity, cleared so much for
Mhm.
you to have more capacity to
Mhm.
hold more in your business. And then here we are again. Why do you think that is?
I've been asking myself that all weekend. I was even on a little at a retreat center and was with friends and was sharing, and I'm not sure. Yeah. Um, I don't know.
Okay, well, let's start here. So when you said I need to get the value, and if you can remind me, I don't know if you even remember what you said, but if you can remember around, you said I have to get the value, and you said something around that as well, like before or after that around
Sure.
something else that like I was like, oh, that's something. What do you
Okay. I
remember
think
the
I
other
said
thing?
I get her only for a month at a time, so obviously that's
Mhm.
what I paid for. And so I have this sense of urgency to get as much in as I can, like the homework or the work she gives me to work on whatever in my business, um, so that I can get the value out of all that, meaning get as much done and advice from her and coaching as possible. Whereas if I went slower and took my weekends off, I might only do half the work.
Yeah. And what I find also very interesting, because you've been in my world for so long, that I see this all the time about how much you say that you want to have more joy and more peace and more like these very
Yes.
slow things. And then in
Yes.
bed, you're like, but I have to
Totally
hustle to get
opposite.
there. And so
It's
I
totally
think, yeah, I think what's really interesting about that is that when you're in action, again, have discernment. Like, I'm not saying this for people that are not in action and they're stuck and they're in freeze mode, but people that are in action, their medicine is to slow down and let it be easy. The people that are
yeah.
not in action are usually like something a different,
Yeah.
right? And so, what I tell people that are in action is that the journey to get there should feel how you think the destination is going to feel. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
pick that up from where you're
Right.
at. And
No, no.
so let's
Clearly.
start with this belief that
Yeah.
what is the belief around like if I don't get the value, I've wasted time, like give me the thought process.
Probably wasted money for sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
And if you waste money, what does that mean about you?
Well, that's just dumb.
It's
I
dumb,
don't really think that, but that's
but
what
there's
came to my head.
that's okay. Like,
You know what I
but
mean?
there's
I know.
something that you're making it mean. Your brain is just
Right.
telling you that's dumb because that's the surface.
I
So
know.
a good way to do this is to
Yeah.
tap into the thought, but the sensation
Mhm.
as well of I
Right.
have to get the value because if I don't,
Yes.
it's going to feel like
Yes.
this. If you tap into that sensation, and you
Yeah,
can
you're
do it right
right.
now, and I
Mhm.
want you to go back to the earliest memory that you
Mhm.
have of the sensation of,
Yeah, for sure. Right away, I just get this feeling of almost like a fatherly thing and then that I'm stupid.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Is there a memory? Maybe it's not, and that's okay.
No, but definitely the fatherly sensation, like the memory of the dad, yeah. But not a particular memory. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can
yeah.
feel all this now, like a weird in
It's
my body.
wonky. And here's the thing
Yeah.
too that I find really interesting that I've always known, but I now have the terminology to explain is that with working with Kundalini, because it's energy, is when we
Mhm.
have anxiety, when now, okay, again, the very 3D is, well, I don't have enough estrogen and my progesterone is all what, and I've got too much cortisol, which causes anxiety. That is true. But
Right.
also from an energetic standpoint, when we don't have healthy outlets for this really, because if you feel into that I'm stupid energy, it probably
Mhm.
feels very frantic.
Yeah, well, that's how I was yeah, I can't even explain it. Yeah,
Yeah. And
I
then
think.
when you say, well, I'm almost feeling anxiety, it probably feels very similar.
Oh, probably. I'm sure I had anxiety as a kid. I don't now, but I did.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
Mhm.
what this looks like is like, okay, this anxiety, these sensations are literally trying to communicate with you. Yes, I understand there's actual like hormone things
Mhm.
happening, but on an emotional and
Mhm.
energetic level, they're trying to say, hey, can you
Mhm.
please look at this wound because I'm trying to communicate with you and you're not hearing me. So it's like a 2 year
Right.
old. And that's why
Right.
the energy and the anxiety
Yes.
gets worse because it's trying to talk to you and we're just like, you know?
Yeah. No, I
So
get it. Yeah,
yeah,
because at the time I always feel I don't want to say fine, but I feel pretty good. It's
yeah.
over time that then it becomes too much. So it's obviously it's saying, "Hey, this isn't working for you." Isn't there a book called that? Not When the Body Speaks, but something like about oh, I don't know. When the
There's so
body's telling.
many. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
there's
so
so many.
many. Like there's
So my body is telling me
yeah.
because my brain feels fine. I mean, my mind and my thought. It's my body that's going, "Whoa." Yeah.
And this is the thing, and especially as women, we have been taught to disregard what our body is telling us, disregard what our intuition is telling us, and
Mhm.
logically go about
Right.
things. But I'm going to be very clear: is that the people that quantum leap in my world will all tell you it's not logical. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
And
Wow.
so and I think we put ourselves in a box about what's possible when we look at it from our
Mhm.
brain. And
Right.
you're right there is like already. I have been going about my brain feels fine, but my body's screaming no. And we know through this work is that our body is always telling the truth. Our brains lie all
Mhm.
the time. So
Sure.
I guess the question then becomes, what do you fear would happen if you did slow down?
Yeah, good question. Well, I would have to slow down with my nonprofit work, like reduce, because even that, I work hours and I don't get paid, and I take on extra things because I feel like I can. Well, that's just too much, and that doesn't make sense. It's not worth my health. It's not worth it, even though it's all good work, and I feel like I'd be letting my colleague down. There's that too. But that's I'm meeting her today to say I cannot operate at this pace. Like when my body gets like this, I know this is not
Right,
good. And then, yeah, right.
right.
So something has to modify there for sure. But I said
Yeah.
that last time.
Yeah. And so this is why we have to clear it because it's going to keep coming back. And this is exactly what I was talking about. It
Mhm.
comes back in different facets, you know?
Yes, yes.
So what
Right.
I think, I'm trying to decide the best way to navigate this because obviously we have people that watch the replays and I'm trying to think about how I want to teach this in a way that like makes sense to everybody. And so
Yeah.
the truth is that I could work this from the alignment standpoint because this would come up in the alignment work as well. And or I could work this from the standpoint of like the gap. I love doing gap work of like where I'm at now and then where I want to
Mhm.
be. And then what's the difference of who would I be if I had
Right.
this, right? Because the truth
Yes,
is that
yes.
we do know. And
Yeah.
because it sounds like you're being very logical, that gap work can be very helpful because it is very logical,
Mhm.
right? And so
Mhm.
let me see. Let me fill into which one I think might be
Sure.
better.
Yeah.
Or if you have a like something that you feel more drawn to because it all the work I do is specifically created to bring all this stuff up. But
Mhm.
when we're kind of hitting this upper limit of okay, I see it, but I don't know why it's here and I don't know how to clear it because I don't think it's just enough
Mhm.
to clear the sensation of like, oh, I'm stupid. I think there's more to it than that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Me
And
too.
so yeah, so let me just look at my notes here because I wrote out a few different protocols. So I was like, what are we going to work on today? Okay, what do you feel like would help you for the next week to really move forward? Do you feel like it's releasing that sensation, or do you feel like it's like the logical side of this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm going, and these are the exact things that need to change?
Is that like the gap one? Earlier when you said the gap one, that seemed to
Yeah,
speak to me.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
let's do that. Cool. All right, I'm just gonna pull up something very quickly.
sure. And I'm actually feeling kind of weird right now.
Yeah. Well, I think again, hormones will make you feel that way. That's first and
Yeah.
foremost. But also when our brains start to realize that the stories it's been telling us is about to get found
Mm,
out, it does. Like what are you experiencing? And I'll tell you exactly. Like I'll give you the
sure.
scientific explanation of it.
Well, the word woozy comes to mind, but also just even that vulnerable, emotional, on the verge of something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um so what happens is, and I see this a lot with people like not being present. So like I will tell them something and I can clearly see that their brain is not trying to hear it. Like their brain is like, absolutely not, because they'll get brain fog. Like a good example of this
Mm,
is when I teach people like a strategy. And in the call, they're like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And then something happens to knock them off and they can't even remember the strategy because their brain is
right.
literally not allowing them to access the information because it
Yes.
perceives the success or money on the other side as
Wow.
a threat. And I see it like
Wow.
in real time. It's crazy. And
Hmm.
so even feeling woozy, feeling lightheaded,
Hmm.
feeling like you can't remember, like brain fog, that
Hmm.
is all your brain. Now, again, going through like hormone stuff also creates that. And I think it creates this extra layer of like, well, it could just be hormones. But the truth is that, you can do things on both levels, right? And so,
Hmm.
but our brains are really sneaky like that. It'll start making us feel
Hmm.
bad. So we again focus on the thing that's distracting us, so to keep us distracted from the real thing.
Yeah, no, I believe it's probably the call because I didn't feel like this before we got on the call.
Like he's like, oh, okay, amazing. All right, so the gap of where you currently are, and I want you to. Do you have a pen and paper?
Yep.
Okay, I just want you to jot down a little bit around how you're, or do you feel like you process better by writing or speaking?
I don't know. I actually don't know, but I do like to write things down.
Okay, we'll write it down. I think it's really important for us. Like I process things, like I write everything down, but I process by speaking. Obviously, I'm a talker. And so for me,
Yeah,
sometimes speaking it out loud. But I just want you to jot down really quickly, like how
sure.
you're thinking in this current moment. So what I've heard is I'm tired. This is repeating.
Oh,
I can't do this
yeah,
anymore. You know, your inner
yeah.
monologue here.
Okay, yeah, then I would definitely process out loud. So that
Yeah,
must be my thing. Oh, I'd
yeah,
say like exhausted,
yeah,
stressed in my chest,
yeah.
um, capacity's full. I usually have such a huge capacity, even emotionally for friends.
Right.
No, I can't. That's done. I can't. In fact, thinking about doing that makes me want to cry, or not makes me, I do feel like I'll cry because that's so drained. I'm so drained. And literally, I was not feeling like this 2 weeks ago, but it's the buildup. I know that now. Like,
That's another thing is it's now that you're doing this work, you
mhm,
start to see it quicker and quicker and quicker, and then eventually it'll be
mhm.
instantaneous. When something's out of alignment, you'll know it immediately. But
Wow.
this is years of not listening and
Yeah.
honoring that.
Yes,
And that's why
yes.
it's little by little coming quicker and quicker. Now you're like 2 weeks ago, which is a pretty good rebound time. I mean, you have to think some people stay in the cycle for years and don't see it.
Right, right.
That's all
Wow.
that's happening here. So just a context around the normality of it. Like that's normal for this
Yeah,
to happen when you're doing this work. Okay.
right.
So the belief, the belief, and I'm going to write down, I don't have the capacity for it. And I know that that's really because this is such an interesting thing to say because sometimes we'll be like, it's not a belief, it's a reality. But let's just say for a
Mhm.
moment, if we're creating our reality, that can be changed, right? So let's just
Yeah.
whether or not that's true is not the point because the truth is we just want the action steps of what we're doing and that we don't have to feel bad or guilty. We just go and we set our boundaries and our standards
Mhm.
from a very centered and empowered place, right?
Mhm.
So I'm going to write that down. But what other beliefs do you have? So I don't, or so you don't have the capacity.
The exhausted part, I'm exhausted. Or what did you mean?
So
Oh,
any belief
like
that you have.
action? Oh, I
So
see.
it would be like what beliefs that you have from like is it something like
Well, I feel like I can't do this anymore, meaning
yeah
I know I can't keep going at this pace. I can't.
yeah
I literally can't.
yeah
So then
well and what does
something
that
has to
mean
change.
about your business too? Because this is the other side is I know
Oh,
that you
yeah,
love your nonprofit, but how does this affect your business and getting really clear on like what pieces fit where
right.
and
So
in what
my
proportion?
business is my number one. So
Okay.
this totally means the nonprofit has to change because and I've told my colleague that from the very beginning when we started this, that Baby's Best Brain is my number one. And this is like a part-time job to me, but I'm not really acting like it's a part-time job. Anyway, so that's the part. I know that has to change. And I need to start just when it comes to the nonprofit work or my Baby's Best Brain work, keep it in the hours of the day, no more evenings and no more weekends.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Okay.
answers the
Yes, it
question.
does. But I have a question. So I'm just thinking about how I want to articulate it.
Mhm.
When you go back to that sadness, if it feels safe to go back to, because I could
Sure.
feel like obviously I could see, but I could
Mhm.
also just feel like there's some sadness there. Is the
Yeah.
sadness that you don't actually have the capacity? Because I know for you, the big,
Mm.
big motivator for you is community and connection. And so
It's
is it
true.
sad that I'm going to miss out on community and connection? Or, or
Mhm.
is it, well, check in with that one first and let me know.
Yeah, I don't think so when you say that, even though I got very emotional saying because it was something my friend kind of wanted me to help her research to do with her daughter, and I just had I couldn't go there. I don't have the emotional capacity for that. And usually I don't want to say gifted, I just mean usually so abundant in that for others. But no,
Yeah.
because I'm reading my body, I'm not going there. So what's my point? That triggered the emotional sensitivity. So and now I've forgotten what you asked me.
That's okay. You see what your brain is doing? Your brain is
Yes,
trying
yes,
real hard, and that's how I know we're on the right path, because your brain is trying
yes.
really hard to not allow us to go there. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So the other thing is that I want to ask you, fill in the blank. Okay, when I help others,
Mhm.
I
I don't
feel,
feel
or I
alone.
am.
When you were asking me that, it came to me. I don't feel alone in the world.
Yeah.
I'm an only child raised with two parents with mental illness. It was a very lonely upbringing, and my mom stopped being my mom at age 12. So I had an Asperger's father, and I've always felt very alone in the world.
Yeah. Is that the sadness?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. If your brain thinks that you are going to go back to feeling alone, it will do everything it can to make sure you don't feel that. So it's like, hey, you better say yes. Hey, you better have connection. You better do everything you can for everybody else.
Right. I'm writing this down so I can remember.
That's okay. You take your time. You take your time.
Yeah, I get it.
This is a part of stepping into your power, because a lot of
Right.
times even being nice is not is not authentic to who we are. It's how we learn to get our needs met in the world. And I just
Right.
want to context you, and not to take away from your experience, but I so deeply feel you. I was also an only child. My dad died when I was young, and my mom is unstable. And so I hear you. And the
Right.
thought of being ousted from anything that makes me feel like I belong or connect, for me, it's connection. Like
Hmm.
because I never had that. When you have emotionally unavailable parents, you don't have that. And so you long for it. And we spend our lives seeking it
Mm.
out. But then we get
Yes.
to a point where it's like, oh, oh, this is actually in alignment with who I truly am. This was me trying to get my needs met.
Right.
So now I want you to ask yourself, and I want you to answer from your body, do I know with 100% certainty that if I start saying no, that I'll lose the connection or the community?
Oh, that's so hard for me to answer with my body. Do
What is
I
your brain
know?
telling you with
Well, it's
100%
telling me,
certainty?
yeah, the brain's just saying, well, logically, of course I won't lose that community. But obviously, deep down, I must not really believe that.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is when our bodies are so dysregulated that it won't allow us to answer properly because we feel too like activated. But
Hmm.
I will tell you this, there are very few things in this world that when I ask myself that question, I mean, that 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 I could know with 100% certainty.
No,
You just
exactly.
couldn't. You just
Right.
couldn't. And so, one of my favorite patterns to release this, and I'm going to teach it to you now, and I feel like I might have taught you this in the past, but this is a really good thing to add in with tapping. Is it's a pattern. We call it like a language pattern, and it helps you release emotion, and it's
Mm.
really powerful. So the language pattern is I. You have two options here. I forgive myself for, or I forget, or I let go of the misunderstanding. And you have to figure out what works best for you, because I find that if
Hang
you think
on.
you've
Sorry,
done,
Farron. Hang on 1 second.
yeah,
Suddenly there's this terrible noise
no,
outside.
that's okay.
I just had to shut the window because I couldn't hear you. Okay.
No, that's okay. And also, I want to point this out. Do you see all the things that are trying to
Yes.
distract you from this?
I knew you were
The,
going to
uni-
say that,
the universe is weird. I was in like a
right?
very high level, very expensive um, program. And I'll never forget, like, this girl was going through something kind of similar, something really deep, very deep seated. And every time she tried to like get it out, I mean, there was
Mhm.
like a siren going by, and then something fell in the room, like everything to distract her from it. And of
Oh my
course, like,
gosh.
the leader was able to call it out and be like, this is what's happening. It's okay. And like, still get it out of her. But for anybody that doesn't think that the world is responding to us, I just want to just like, like, and whatever, like maybe you don't believe that. It's pretty woo woo, and that's fine. But I see it over and
No,
over. You're not the first person
I
I've seen
believe
this
it.
with. Yeah. Yeah. So the pattern is, and like I said, it's either I forgive myself. So, like, for example, this would be like, I forgive myself for the belief, right? Because it's just a belief
Right,
that
right.
if I set my boundaries, or I say no, or whatever the verbiage is right for you, that I'll lose community, I'll lose connection, I'll lose friends. And again, I'll help you do this because we have to find a very simple, when I feel this, or I let go of the misunderstanding this, when the truth is this, right?
Right,
But
right.
you'll
Okay.
have to find the right words, and we might have to do it a few
Yes.
times, and you'll know. And I'll also know. I'll see the shift in your
Sure.
body. So
Okay.
originally it was taught, I forgive myself, but that doesn't land for me unless it's
Mm-hmm.
something that I did wrong, right? And then it kind of
Right,
lands like I need to forgive myself. So I
right.
use the I let go of the misunderstanding, but you
I
get to
like
do
that.
what's right for you. Yeah, me too. Okay.
I like
So what's
the
this?
misunderstanding.
So what this sounds like is I let go, and you can repeat after me. I let go of the misunderstanding that,
I let go of the misunderstanding that
and what's your misunderstanding? Say it in your
that I'm
words.
all alone in this world.
Good. When the truth is, and what's
When the
your
truth
truth?
is, when the truth is, I'm surrounded by a family that loves me. I don't know. I sort of just said that logically.
Yeah, that's okay. We're going to do it a few times. And the truth is that,
Mm-hmm.
and what this might, and this is what I mean by we have to find the right words, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
see your
Mm-hmm.
body will completely change. You'll be like, oh, okay. And so it might sound something like, I let go of the belief that, like, I think it's not the belief that you're all alone in the world. It is that, but it's that if I set my boundary, if I
Right.
say no, then people
Oh,
will leave me, kind of thing. I
right.
think that's more
Ooh,
of
that's
the
a hard
thing.
one.
Yeah. So let's see if we can get that out and shift your body
Yeah.
with that.
Okay, so say the first words again.
I let go of the misunderstanding
Oh, I let go of the misunderstanding
that if I say no,
that if I say no,
that I'll lose my connection
I will lose my connections
or that I'll feel alone. Maybe
or
that's,
that I'll feel alone.
does that feel right? Let go of the misunderstanding that when I say no, I will feel,
I feel so unknowing. I just
yeah,
feel
it's
so,
okay.
yeah,
It's
I
okay.
don't know.
When the truth
When the truth
is that I actually cultivate better relationships when I'm standing in my boundaries.
I cultivate better relationships when I'm standing in my boundaries. And that much I do know to be true. I have lived and experienced that. And that's how I love my friends, by having good boundaries for
Yeah.
myself and allowing them to have theirs.
Yeah. So try that pattern again, but all together to see if we can shift it.
Okay.
And you'll know, you'll be like, this is right or it's not, and you'll start to come up with your own words.
Okay. So you need to start me out again.
Yeah, so that's okay. I let go of the misunderstanding that by saying no,
I let go of the misunderstanding that by saying no, I will be all alone.
and the truth is,
When the truth is, I can cultivate beautiful relationships with friends and family, living in my power with healthy boundaries. That's the truth. Yeah, that made me feel a little woozy.
yeah, it's just because you're releasing stuff. This is very
Hmm.
deep seated. You've been living this
I think
pattern since you were
so.
probably a very young child.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I'm going to give you after this, because I'm going to give you, we're going to still do some things. I'm going to give you some homework. But if
Okay.
you bump up against this over and over and over again and it continues to be an issue, let me know. And maybe we can do a one to one. I don't really offer a lot of one to ones these days, but to
Sure.
clear that for you,
Sure.
because, it's up to you.
Yeah.
You get to clear at the pace that's right for you. I'm never going to push you into that, but I can get in there and like get it out.
Yeah.
But I want you to try it on your own first and see how far
Sure.
you can get. But I can see
Yeah.
there's just so much resistance. If you're feeling woozy and not like can't stay focused,
Hmm.
I've never seen you like this actually. I've never seen you not be able to
I
stay so
know.
focused, which is okay. There's no judgment. God knows I'm never
Yes.
focused. Like
Yes.
there's no
That's
judgment here. But just to
yes.
show you what your brain and body are doing to try to because
I
it
know.
to you connection equals survival. So your brain and
It
body are
does.
literally fighting for
Oh
survival
my
right now.
gosh. You just
That's
hit
why
it
you
on
feel
the
that. Yeah.
yeah, you just hit the nail on the
I
head.
literally have goosebumps right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay. But this is
Hmm.
an old pattern.
Hmm.
And the thing is that I knew this was a big thing because it kept coming up.
Hmm.
I have the capacity. Just kidding. I don't actually have the capacity. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
it is. I mean, at least I'm laughing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing that I want you to write down or speak out loud, but maybe you want to write it down as well, is
Yeah, yeah,
if I felt safe. I know that you don't feel safe yet. That's okay.
right.
But if
Okay.
I did, what would change? I want it to be very specific. Not that I'm going to talk to my colleague.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell my colleague this, and this is the
No,
max amount of
yeah.
hours, like very specific things.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Those specific things.
Yeah, because what
Um,
happens is our brain is super cute and it'll be like, I'll talk to my colleague. And then you go to talk to your
mhm.
colleague, but like you didn't have the exact thing that you really wanted to say. You still
Right,
like dance around it. Right. So from this place,
right.
it's like, no, I'm telling her this. And moving forward, this is my
Mhm.
boundary with hours. And moving forward,
Right.
if and we start to get really clear on, okay, here's what's going to kind of blow your mind. As you
Yeah.
start allowing yourself to say no,
Mhm.
you'll ironically open up so much more capacity that you'll have way more
Mm.
capacity to actually connect with people in a more
Right.
like
Authentic.
authentic way.
Yeah.
Exactly. Versus it being, I'm doing this because unconsciously it equals safety, not because I authentically desire to do it. This
Right.
work is
Right.
actually about getting clear on what you actually desire and letting that lead you.
Mhm.
But most of us are
Mhm.
really operating out of fear and out of these old stories and patterns, which is fine. It's there's not
Mhm.
we're humans, there's nothing wrong with it. But when you get
Yes.
to this pinnacle of the same pattern over and over and over again, and then it's like, okay,
Mhm.
like this is deep and I get to lean into my desire without the fear that something's going to be taken away from me. When you
Mhm.
learned how to do that, your life will completely change and it will blow your
Mm.
mind because you no longer are operating from an old
Mhm.
belief system. Because the truth
Mhm.
is that old belief system will not allow you to have and sustain the business that you want because that's the number one thing that's
Right.
kept you stuck is the capacity thing. It's come up over and over again.
Yes.
So as soon as that's resolved, it'll
Mhm.
open you up.
Wow. Mhm.
Do you see this? Do you see like the big
Mhm.
cycle here? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I've
Yeah.
learned a lot from you.
I mean, it's my honor. I mean, it's what I'm here to do. It's what I'm meant to do. And I feel like you guys see
Mhm.
this all the time, like where I'll speak and people be like, what did you just say? And I'm like, I don't actually know. Cause a lot of times I feel like I'm just channeling it. I don't even know that it's my
Right.
information sometimes. People be like, what did you just say? That was really good point. And I'm like, I don't even know what I just said. It's just like flowing out, And so it's, you guys know my story. I've been through so much trauma, but I don't really feel identified as that anymore. And you got to see
Mm.
me witness me being very identified is, last year and now being
Mm.
like, I'm not identified with that anymore. And that's what's on the other side of the freedom of this, of like,
Right.
now I get to move towards this is exactly what I meant at the beginning when I said being focused on what we desire versus what the problem is. So this is exactly what I
Yes.
mean is I get to focus on what I'm here to do and what I desire and what I desire to help people with, not so I get anything, but because it's what
Yes.
I'm meant to do versus being I had trauma and that trauma created a dynamic for me to get into this work. And so I'm going to speak to people with trauma. That's still me focused on the past negativity. And that's not to say like it's a process, like it's like a grieving process.
Mhm.
Like that's not to say I skirt around it and I act like I never had trauma, but I'm no longer focused on it or identified into it. And so
Yeah, I get it.
ironically, I don't need to speak to that anymore. I mean, I might
Right.
every once in a while, but like it's not my core story anymore. And from
Mhm.
that, I attract differently, I speak differently, I say different things because I'm just like, no, this is happening. I'm moving forward in my business and this way, and it's going to be easy, and I'm not available for anything else. Versus, well, I had trauma, and that happened, and this happened, and now it's like
Mhm.
this. It's different, and not,
Mhm.
neither is right or wrong. It's just
Yeah.
different.
Right. Right. We don't have to judge it. Just let it be.
We never judge it. We always are
Yeah.
momming ourselves. We never judge it because if we do, it's just gonna rage on.
Right. Right.
So, what specific things? Because we're going to bridge the gap of where you're at now
Yes.
and what it is,
Yes.
right?
Well, if possible, I think I need to step down as a director and go back to 10 hours a week or less in the nonprofit at the minimum. And then be firm with that. No more working for free, no more taking on extra, even if I feel like it. I mean, even if I feel like I have capacity, right?
How many times you tell me that you just want more joy and more things to be easy, but then you go back and work for free? Just
Right.
because
Right.
just because it feels good doesn't mean that that's what your time should be focused on, or like what's even worth
Yes.
your energy. Like,
Yes.
you
You're
know,
right. Just because it feels good doesn't mean it's good for me or even them. Like
this
I
is
keep
yeah, go ahead.
I've been saying to my colleagues and myself, yet I've not really done anything about it, but I feel at this age I'm not supposed to be grinding up because when you start a nonprofit, it's a lot of work. I should be winding down and being good to myself and taking care of myself. And I know
And
I'm
you
not taking care of
desire
myself.
it. You told
I
me
do.
this.
I do.
And the only reason you're not allowing yourself to lead with that desire is because you have this sticky thing around, well, if
Yes.
I do, then people I'll feel alone. And that's not safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not going to try to pull it out of you, mainly because we're
Mhm.
almost at time, but also
Sure.
when we come to the realization of these really big things, sometimes you need
Mhm.
a week or two to process it,
Mhm. Mhm.
because I can always tell when it's too big and people
I
start
know.
to short circuit. I know then and there that it's not the time, because
Mhm.
I'm not going to try to wrench it out of you. It's when you're
Mhm.
ready, it will come.
You know, Farron, here's the emotional part, but I'll just say it quickly. I don't mind sharing. But yeah, those feelings were so strong when I was 11. I wanted to die, you know?
Yeah.
So
That's what I
it's
mean by
okay. That
survival.
hardship,
Do you
yeah,
see
and that
that?
hardship made me the person I am today. But you're right. That is survival. You're right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And that's why it feels so intense and so anxiety ridden, because your brain is literally red flag.
Hmm.
Hey, hey, hey. Remember when you used to feel this way? Where you almost like, did something really bad, or like, wanted to die or whatever. It's literally telling you and
Hmm.
signaling to different parts of your brain, this is not safe.
Right. So
So
now I need to
maybe,
tell it it's
yeah, just
safe.
to have
It's safe.
compassion for it to not
Hmm.
feel safe. So here's how this works. It's the beginning
Right.
stages is like a mom of just, it's okay that you don't feel safe. We're not going to try to
Yeah.
force you to feel safe right now. It's okay that you don't feel safe. And you'll
Okay.
notice what happens, and you can do this right now.
Hmm.
You'll notice that it starts to just a little bit soften. It might not soften a lot because it's still raw, but soften a little bit,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so then it's like, okay, once it
It's
softens just
okay.
a little bit, so like let it know, like it's okay that you don't feel safe. I see you and I hear you. Try to tell it that
Hmm.
and notice what happens.
Hmm. Yeah, it's affirming. It feels nice.
Yeah. And then from there, we start to move past the what do you need to feel safe. But first we just have to honor that they don't feel safe. That part of us
Okay.
doesn't feel safe. And then
Sure.
it's like from there, it's like, do you feel safe to talk to me about this? What can I do to make you feel more safe? See what it says, because we'll write that in for your
Mm.
next action step. So ask it, what do you need, even if it's 10% more safe? What do you need
Mm.
to feel more safe?
Like meaning the actions that I'll take. Even today, I'm meeting with my colleague and I'm going to tell her I can't do
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Or continue.
just check in really quick, because that's
Yeah.
from your brain, and see what it tells you when you say, "What do you need to
Oh, I
feel
see what
even
you
ten
mean.
percent
Yeah.
more safe?" Just check in
Okay.
really quick. See what it says.
Actually, I feel like I need her support and I know she's just going to react with fear. So I think I compensate for her fear. Ay, ay, ay.
Okay. So here's what I would do. I would,
Yeah.
if you're going to talk with her today, I would do probably a lot of tapping around getting rid of
Sure.
any beliefs or sensations or feelings around overcompensating for her, like that you're responsible
Okay.
for her experience, because you're
Yes.
not. Because
Yes.
and I'm gonna put this in a way that I know that you'll get, and like you'll be able to stick with it in a very heart-centered way, is that
Okay.
she is learning her own lesson and having her own
Good.
journey. And by you
Yes.
pacifying and always overcompensating, you're actually prolonging her
Oh,
learning that
yes.
lesson. So I really need you to think about that for a minute, because anytime that you don't want to say no, I want you to think
Right.
about that. As
Yes.
uncomfortable as it is for us, we're actually prolonging their lesson or their suffering. of like, that's
Yeah.
their lesson to learn. And we can't learn it for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
Right. So the other thing that I found really interesting that you said that I want to circle back around to is if possible.
Did I say that?
Yes. If at all possible, I'm going to sit down in 10 minutes, in 10 hours max. And I was like,
Mhm.
if at all possible, no, this is what I choose moving forward. How, and this is the
Right.
capacity I have, but how can I
Right.
serve you within that capacity? I have 10 hours this week that I can help find somebody for you, but
Hmm.
this is non-negotiable from a very heart-centered way, but I have to take care of
Hmm.
me first.
Hmm.
And so check in with your body and like see if there's so much discomfort. Okay, on a
Hmm.
scale from 1 to 10, how uncomfortable does it feel to be like, this is happening? I am stepping down. So 10 would be like, yep, that's really uncomfortable. And 0 would be like, no, not at all.
Yeah, no, it's at least at a 7. I
Okay.
feel like there's is another dynamic of her and I, our dynamic there.
Yeah.
Because with
Yeah.
any other part-time job, I would have no problem saying, sorry, this is where I'm at because it's work. It's just a job.
Yeah,
But
but this is something that you started with somebody that you
it
obviously have a
is,
relationship with. That's very different.
yes,
And
it
I
is
feel
very
like
different.
normally I wouldn't just say this, but I want to give you some more resolution before we get off the call. But I feel like it's you don't want to let people down. And so I think it's really more about me
Hmm.
letting people down isn't it's okay for me to let people down when my sanity or my health is at
Right.
stake.
Yes. Yes. I have not been saying that to myself. I've been acting like it's not okay to let her down. But you're right, it is okay. It's okay. I don't have to be perfect. It's okay to
Well,
let her down.
and what's in alignment with you varies. I am not the same person I was last year. Like, what if
It's
somebody
true.
came from last year and was like, well, you quoted me this price for this package and I want it now?
Hmm.
And I'd be like,
Hmm.
yeah, those are not my prices because I'm not the same person. I
It's
reserve the
true.
right to change as a human being and as a woman in a heart centered
Hmm.
way. I'm not trying to be a bitch, but like,
Yes.
I
Yes.
reserve the right to do that. And when something is out of
Yes.
alignment, and I just want to show you like how much energy is going into focusing on this, when really you could
Yes.
just be focused on making money and having joy.
Hmm.
Because those are the things that you've told me over and over again.
Hmm.
Those are your desires.
Yes. Yes. And what's are sort of ironic is when she and I first started this, I made it very clear to her that my business was my first priority. This is my second, because to her, the nonprofit is her first, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just a part-time job for me.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's actually been draining me. That's not a part-time job.
Yeah. So do you feel very clear as far as the conversation that you're going to have with her today of I'm stepping down, moving forward, it's 10 hours, but in that 10 hours, I can help support you in the best way I can.
Hmm.
Like what feels right for you? Because I want your brain to feel really safe going into this because I know that this is
Hmm.
tied to a lot of like
Hmm.
survival mechanisms. So I really want you to be very rooted in like this is what I'm sticking to.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I feel like if she was more, she will operate in fear. That part's getting me. If she was the kind of person who could say, "Oh, Heather, you should do what's best for you," I think I'd
Yeah.
feel more free. Like, look at
Well,
me.
I'm
I'm
going to
like,
leave you with two things that I think are going to help you. The first thing
okay.
is that the reason this is so uncomfortable and wonky is because that dynamic that you agreed on with her was from an old you. The reason it feels so wonky is because it's literally not who you are anymore.
Right.
And you're just
Yeah,
like, right?
that
Like
makes
that's
sense.
just not
Yeah.
who you are. You made that agreement as a version of you that no longer exists, right? The
Hmm.
second thing is that I love this because you told me that you did this, and I think it's the perfect time to do it. Do a heart prayer for her before you speak to her.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, I've been so in it. I didn't even think of it.
Well, that's
Oh,
why
I
people
love
do
that.
containers like this. Is like for us to call it the blind
Hmm.
spots, and because we can hold it when it's hard to hold all of it when
Yes.
you're in it. You need somebody to reflect it to
Yes.
you, but yeah, do that, and
That's
just
like the
keep reminding
superpower.
yourself. Yeah, and just keep reminding yourself that her experience is not your
Yes.
responsibility. It's not.
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
if you feel like tapping or journaling with this part of you that's like, I'm going to be
Yes.
alone if I set my boundaries, You can,
Yes.
but this was
Okay.
really deep and you might not need to do anything other than just rest. You're going to feel very
Okay.
tired after this. Like it's totally
Okay.
normal. You might need to take a nap. It's fine. And then next week, it's like, okay, this is where we're at. Right. So
Okay.
if you have the capacity and you feel inspired to do it, do it. But if not, just say,
Hmm.
you know what? Enough. I did enough in that session today. I brought up something that was really big that completely altered the way I look at the universe and my reality.
Hmm.
And that's enough.
Hmm.
You don't have to do
Hmm.
anything else other than that for this whole week.
Okay.
So don't get too caught up in I got to fix this thing, right? It's
Okay.
it's okay, the thing is there.
Yeah.
If it comes up, I'll honor it. Otherwise, I'll work it as it comes up, but I'm not going to be like this needs to go because
Right.
you
Thank
can't
you.
bully it into going away.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, full permission to just rest and be okay and
Hmm.
be grateful that you now understand and that
Hmm.
as you transmute it or transform it, that you're going to
Hmm.
just move closer and closer to the person that you actually are and desire to be. You are that person. It's just you're just remembering how
Hmm.
to get back to it. That's all. Being
Okay.
human is
Love it.
hard. Earth school is hard, you know?
Oh, it is. Yes. I mean, I understand that. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Farron. This is so
you're
good.
welcome. Yeah, let me know if you
Wow.
need anything, and I'm here if you need anything, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Let me know how it
Okay.
goes too.
Sure. I will.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye.